Hello and welcome to this month's workshop from Linda Ryan Consulting. The series that we are doing is focused on supporting instructional coaches or even the people who lead instructional coaches. So thanks for listening in. Our topic this month is taking a look at where and how we are spending our time. Believe it or not, it's not a really sexy topic, but it can really help us become more effective with our coaching. So we're gonna dive in today. I am Linda Ryan. I am the owner of Linda Ryan Consulting. We are an independent educational consulting company. Our focus is on supporting schools and districts with improved literacy and instructional coaching systems. And our goal is really to honor the people that work in those systems. What we know is that every district, every school, everyone has a unique story. There is a specific context that lives in your work, and our boxed strategies simply can't work for every single system that we meet. So we like to think about how do we personalize things and how do we make them make sense for your people. Okay, so if you want to learn a little bit more about our work or connect with us, please visit our website at lindaryanconsulting.com. And let's move into our content for today. We're currently in our welcome and our introduction. We'll establish some shared agreements. We will also move into how do we find our coaching time, given our schedules and calendars. What does our time for coaching cycles look like? We will close with some connections to our coaching system assessment and, of course, a thank you and an invitation. Our goals for today, really, it's to help us identify what are our opportunities in our current schedules so that we can maximize our coaching time. Here's the thing, right? Sometimes we can't get around the barriers that our schedules create for us. So what we need to do is stop trying to change the schedule and instead look at the schedule and make it work for us. And then after we do that, we are going to think about what are our coaching touch points? What have they been looking like, right? And are we really moving through all of the parts of a coaching cycle as we intend to? And so we're gonna give ourselves an opportunity to think through that. Some norms for us. If I had some people live, this is something we'd be taking a look at, but I'm going to go through them because this is something I want us to honor. If you are using this workshop on a recording to guide yourselves through it or working with a team as you're working through the slides with me in the recording. So I encourage us to stay engaged. I do encourage some participation, right? So take the opportunity to pause this video and open it up for discussion before you just simply play along. If you're watching this on your own, I encourage you to pause and take a minute to reflect where there's an opportunity for sharing or reflection. And of course, if you're on technology in a group, I encourage you to use that tech to enhance your learning, honor the vulnerability of the people around you, and let's work from a learning and curious stance today. If you're doing this with some other people, I encourage you to share what is a challenge that you are facing with finding time for coaching right now. If you're doing this yourself, pause the video and think about what is a current challenge that you are facing when it comes to finding time for coaching. All right, welcome back from your reflection. Before we dive into some of the work time, I want us to establish some shared agreements, okay? So I want us to think about, regardless of the coaching expert or framework that you or your system is leaning on to guide your work, I want us to agree on these 3 phases of a coaching cycle. These 3 phases are essential to creating a loop and closing a loop when we're working to support instructional improvements. So, what are the 3 phases? Well, we have a pre-conversation phase. The things that we find happening during a pre-conversation phase will be goal setting, as well as planning and maybe some modeling as well. So we want to be engaging the coach and the teacher during this time to develop some shared goals. Then they might be developing those aligned actions that support the shared goal that they developed. And the coach may find that they are supporting the teacher with some co-planning or even some modeling through Think Aloud during this time. So this is happening before we are implementing something or trying something out, because that's the next phase of the coaching cycle, right? We want teachers to have the opportunity for some practice as well as some opportunities to demonstrate what they are trying out with the coach's support. So we're putting that in the observation category, but it doesn't necessarily have to be a formal observation, obviously, right? We want the coach to be in the room where it happened, right? And helping the teacher think through what is this looking like as we're trying it out. So based on that pre-conversation, the teacher and the coach will be working together to implement those actions that they deemed would be supporting that shared goal. And then, of course, there's a debrief phase, right? There needs to be an opportunity for the coach and the teacher to meet and discuss what was it that we saw? How did that practice round go? What is it that we need to tweak? What is it that we want to make sure that we continue doing because it was successful? So this is our opportunity to really analyze how things went and determine where do we go from here. Okay, so when I'm thinking about a coaching cycle, these are the 3 phases that I am thinking through. And this is important for us to kind of establish and process right now, because what I'm going to be asking us to do is thinking through these 3 phases as a lens when we are taking a look at our schedules, calendars, and coaching cycles. So if you need some more time to think through this, pause the video and y'all can discuss on whether you agree or disagree. But just know that this is the lens from which I'm working today as we're thinking through our work session. Okay, so let's think through this. Why is time a barrier to effective coaching? What happens to your time when you are trying to be an effective coach or supporting the people that you work with in being effective coaches? Time is the hottest commodity in education, and it tends to be the biggest barrier that we face. So pause the video, have some discussion, or reflect yourself. What is it that keeps getting in the way? Don't just make it time, but what is it about time that is the barrier for you? Because what we want to be able to do is think through, are the actions that we're taking today helping us address this barrier? Okay, so we're going to work through our first approach to helping us address this time barrier, right? Like I said, we can't always be in charge of our schedules. It is currently February in 2025. My children have an early release day coming up. We just had a snow day last week and a 2-hour delay, and we're in Charlotte, North Carolina. That we're not even talking about a lot of snow or weather, right? That impacts our school day. But there are things that happen. There's assemblies that get scheduled. There are changes to the days of the week that we just sometimes can't anticipate. So we want to be thinking about, like, these are the schedules that we have. How do we make sure that coaching is happening? And I recommend taking it week by week, right? Every week, things are going to change. And I know that some things change day to day, but we can get a little bit ahead of ourselves by taking things week by week. So what do I mean by this? I want us to start thinking creatively when it comes to taking a look during at what our schedules are allowing for us to determine where are the opportunities for these coaching phases. Okay. So we already established we have a pre-conversation phase, practice and observation, and debrief. But I want us to be thinking outside the coaching cycle box, because here's what happens, right? When we hear coaching cycle, at first we think coaching cycles are coaches working with individuals one-on-one through all of these phases. And yes, that's true, right? And sometimes ideal depending on the needs of the teacher that we are supporting. Um, but also, coaching can happen in other ways and other forms. We might find ourselves coaching a small group of teachers through something. We might be following up with teachers after a professional development was given by somebody else or facilitated by somebody else. And we as coaches are following up on supporting teachers with implementation of that. So we want to get creative with thinking about what are some of the built-in times in our schedules that allow us to think through this. For example, how might we think of pre-conversation opportunities? Well, we might see our PLC or grade level times that are already scheduled, our grade level planning times that are already scheduled as an opportunity for this pre-conversation work. We might be asking that team of teachers to think through, hey, what goal are we really trying here? Do we need to model something, right? Or do some co-planning together so that we can be successful with the plans that we are developing? Is there a staff meeting taking place? Or like I said, a professional development session taking place that allows us to establish this pre-conversation? Remember, the pre-conversation is kind of setting us up for what this cycle's focus is going to be. When we take that lens of thinking through it, it allows us to open up our minds to, hey, maybe there are some other opportunities for me to say I'm coaching here. And then, of course, there's the traditional thinking of the coaching cycle with one-on-one meetings. What about practice or observation opportunities? Well, some coaches might be asked to be conducting walkthroughs, right? Some official walkthroughs, even for the admin team. Or they might be scheduling coaching observations. They might be taking a colleague to visit another classroom and offer that teacher some practice, right? This might be some of that practice before the teacher's trying it. And we might also be seeing modeling or videos to support what the teacher's thinking as they're getting ready to try it. So there's a little bit of a combination with those last two with the pre-conversation, right? But we can see how that's beginning to merge what the teacher is beginning to see in support of their practice. If you find that you are an instructional coach being asked to conduct walkthroughs, while there may be a walkthrough checklist or a specific list of look-fors that you are asked to fill out on a form, I encourage you to also think through the lens of what was the shared goal that was developed in the pre-conversation phase. For example, if you attended a grade level planning meeting and the team said, we are really working on implementing these phonics-based lessons this week and specifically focusing on a routine that it gives students additional time for practice and response time, then that is feedback that you would want to include if you're conducting walkthroughs that week, right? We don't have to separate out the coaching feedback that comes as a result of that. We can incorporate that into, in addition to just how we do things here and what we think as a school or a district system are expected with effective instructional checklists, right? We can also align what our look-fors are specific to those pre-conversations. So this is an opportunity for you to take advantage of. I already have some scheduled walkthroughs. How am I aligning my feedback to the coaching work that I'm supporting? Okay, what about a debrief? Well, this goes back to the type of coaching cycle that you're supporting. If you're working on supporting a group of teachers or individuals, might your feedback cycle or debrief cycle happen during a PLC or grade level meeting? Or if you're working with a teacher one-on-one, you might then be scheduling something in order to debrief what's happening. And so this is where, again, you can get creative and really be strategic about how you're utilizing your time. Okay. So here's the thing. This is an opportunity for you to pause the video and use this as some work time. Coaches are able to benefit from their own lesson planning, right? And thinking about what is their coaching plan for the upcoming week. So what I want you to do when you pause the video is to take it at your week, take a look at your week in the upcoming week or for next week and figure out where do you have opportunities for coaching in your schedule. Knowing what's coming, knowing what the changes to your regular schedule might be. Maybe you have an offsite professional development that you have to attend. Plan for that and make sense of what's coming up in the upcoming week so that you can plan for it. Because too often what we do is we think, oh, I see this person on this day, or I try to have a set schedule. And too often in education, our schedules change from week to week because of those special events or other weather impacts and things like that. So you want to leave this session, this work session, thinking about what is your coaching availability and where do you need to be in order to be effective with your coaching? Who do you need to be seeing? What does their schedule look like? Are there any changes to their schedule? Where are your opportunities to connect with them so that you can be working through these 3 phases of the cycle? Go ahead and pause the video now and you can work through that with your team or on your own. Okay, welcome back from your work session. Now, what I'd like for you to do is reflect on, if you're working with a group, where did you find coaching opportunities in your upcoming schedule, right? And if you're working on this on your own, I want you to reflect on what did that planning session do for you? Did you find more coaching opportunities in your upcoming schedule than you have previously been exploring or thought you had time for before? So you can pause this and use this as a reflection time. Okay, we're going to get ready to move on to the other part of this session where we are looking at our coaching time. So now that we have found some additional coaching time, hopefully we found some additional coaching time, but now that we're aware of how we can be identifying coaching time in our schedules, I want us to also explore how we're using the time that we have, thinking about these coaching cycles, okay? So we want to be thinking about our coaching loop, right? We said that this is working through these 3 phases of pre-conversation, practice or observation, and debrief. So we want to get smart about how we're spending our time. What I find is that often the folks I work with are doing really great at one piece of this, like the observation part, or even the observation and debrief part. But then we start looking closely at what their coaching cycles are looking like. Because a lot of times we're kind of problem solving. Hey, like, what's happening here? Like, why aren't we gaining any traction with the teachers that we're supporting? And what we often find is that we are sometimes missing a key element of this coaching, of one of the coaching cycle phases, right? So this especially happens when coaches are assigned to do some walkthroughs or fidelity check type visits. The other 2 pieces of the coaching cycle drop off. So we feel like, oh, we don't have time to schedule another meeting for a debrief, so we send an email, right? Or we never really made the effort to have a pre-conversation, so that gets dropped off. And what ends up happening is we just keep observing teachers, and teachers get maybe an email of feedback, but they're not actually engaging with the coach in a full coaching cycle. And then coaches get frustrated because they're like, teachers are not doing anything, like they're not changing anything. But here's the thing, if we want to be effective with our time, then we have to figure out how are we making sure that the entire coaching cycle happens? Because otherwise, if we're only observing teachers and sending an email with our feedback or suggestions or ideas, then we're expecting teachers to coach themselves. And that's not necessarily effective. So I want us to start thinking outside the box, right? When it comes to getting stuck in this loop of we're doing our job in terms of observation, but are we really coaching if we aren't doing these other pieces of the coaching cycle? So here's what we can do. What I want you to do, this is again another work session. So this is going to be an opportunity to pause. When you pause the video, what I would like for you to do is take a look at your coaching log or take a look at your calendar and where you've spent some of your time. You can do this for just one person, or you can do this for multiple people that you are supporting. And I want you to start tallying up, how are you spending your time? Can you see evidence of having a planning conversation with someone you're supporting? Did you conduct it in person? Did you conduct that virtually? Was it an email? Maybe you have to put the tally in the other section, for example. What about doing an observation? Did you conduct that in person? Did you do it virtually or maybe in the other column using like a swivel camera because you couldn't be there at the same time that the teacher was practicing that? So you caught up on it with a video observation potentially. And then what about a feedback or debrief? Did you conduct that in person? Did you meet with them virtually, maybe using a Teams meeting? Or did you send that via email in the other column? And then was there some other kind of touch point that you had? And what did those look like? Maybe you were dropping off a resource or something, and therefore you would put a check mark in the in-person column. Maybe you sent them a text message or did a video conversation. I love the Voxer app because we can walkie-talkie each other back and forth on our own time. So again, this is an opportunity for you to kind of tally up, where are you spending your time? How much of it is in person? How much of it is in the other column? Maybe you're spending a lot of time via email with someone. And also look at it horizontally as well. How much planning time are you spending with teachers? How much observation time, feedback and debrief, et cetera. And then once you've tallied your log, okay, you're going to apply some of the Atlas data protocol questions to taking a look at analyzing this data. So first we need to collect our data from our log in this tally sheet, and then we're going to also reflect with these questions of, what do we see in this data? Are there any trends or patterns? The total columns and rows should help us with that. What does this then imply, and how does this inform your coaching? Okay, so pause the video, use the coaching log audit form if you have a copy, or you can make your own and then reflect on those data questions. And then when we come back, we'll close that data reflection with one more question. Okay, welcome back from your data reflection. Hopefully you had an opportunity to tally up what your coaching log was looking like and reflected on what you were starting to learn about where you're spending your time. Now that you know where you're spending your time and what it's looking like, what I want you to think about is, what will you try as a result of this data? We already took a look at the implications, right? What does this mean about where I've been spending my time? And now I want you to think about, so what are you going to do as a result? Is there something that you need to change about the way that you're spending your time? Or is there, if you did this for a particular teacher, is there something that you're noticing might have an impact on why you are gaining traction with that teacher or why you might not be gaining traction with that teacher? So this just allows us to reflect. So you can pause the video and think about what actions you would like to take. Okay, so welcome back. We thought through in the beginning of this session, we were thinking through about time being a really big barrier to our work as effective coaches. But hopefully today we've seen that when we use our time intentionally, we remove this barrier. don't have to lament schedule changes when we take things week by week. And we can also be really clear about how we are engaging teachers in coaching cycles, even when we're thinking about them creatively, as we did when we were identifying coaching opportunities in our schedules and calendar. But also thinking about, are we spending our time closing the loop in those coaching cycles, or have we maybe fallen off or gotten busy with something and felt like we didn't have the time to give? And so if we're feeling like we're being ineffective, we can think about, how are we using our time intentionally? And is this a good time for us to kind of do a coaching time audit and take a look at our calendars, take a look at our schedules, get really clear on what we're doing, and then also take a look at our logs and figure out where have we been spending our time and what might need to shift in that upcoming schedule that we have coaching opportunities for. So, one of the resources that we offer for free at Linda Ryan Consulting is a coaching system assessment. In the coaching system assessment, there is an opportunity for people who download it to think about and reflect on what is happening in our coaching system. How effective is our coaching system? And there are indicators for different parts of our coaching system, which includes the people, the processes, the products, and the culture. And so today's workshop supports two system indicators. One is a process indicator, and the other is a culture indicator. And so if we're thinking about coaching time being a part of master schedules, which we can assess and determine kind of where we are with that, this reflection on our schedules and the way we're using our coaching time allows us to think through, where are our opportunities to have coaching time be a part of our master schedules, as well as thinking through from the culture perspective that coaching cycles include time for all of these pieces of pre-planning, safe practice, observation, and debriefs. Taking a look at our coaching audit, getting intentional with our time helps us do this well, and be able to say and reflect on, yep, we're doing full cycles of support for the teachers that we have. So I invite you to leave a comment and offer some feedback about what went well during this session. What do you wish went differently, as well as sending me an email. So I encourage you to connect with me. Feel free to send me a message on social media or send me an email if you have questions. And thanks for being here. I hope to see you at the next workshop for instructional coaches.